Looks like Eric Gordon, Christian Wood are staying in Houston. The one trade the Rockets did make just before the deadline, trading Daniel Theis back to Boston in a deal that includes Rockets receiving Dennis Schroder, Enes Freedom, who you might know as Enes Kanter, and then Bruno Fernando. I have a funny story on Enes Kanter. Over the offseason when he was a free agent, my buddy saw him at the airport, Bush Airport, and he was like, you in Houston for a free agent visit? And Enes Kanter said, no way, Houston Rockets suck.
Wow.
Yeah, it was hilarious. But the Rockets have already bought out Freedom. They bought Freedom out. He is gone. He is no longer a member of the Houston Rockets. Rockets still going to have to make one move, though, right? Because they're still one above the roster limit in the NBA. I thought initially that Schroder would get bought out, just like my initial quick reaction. But Dennis Schroeder's a good player. Now, he's only under contract for 1 year. I had somebody text me, too, saying, what's the purpose of the Rockets doing this trade? Well, they get rid of the contract of Daniel Theis with the extra years. Freedom had his contract coming to an end this year. It was an expiring contract. Bruno Fernando is just a project guy. Probably he might end up getting cut, too.
I don't think they'll keep him either.
Yeah, he might be the one that you get back to the roster limit. And also Dennis Schroder is somebody whose contract expires at the end of the season as well. So they're trading future money to get the expiring contracts here.
Biggest winners, the Lakers could capitalize on
So you
this.
think Schroder is going to get bought out?
I don't want them to buy them out, but it just seems to me like the Rockets are going to do – well, they never do the thing that I think is the right thing anyway. But I think that they will – there's a chance they will buy him out and let him go, and then the Lakers become the big winner. I think if the Rockets are smart, this move makes a whole hell of a lot of sense for what we were talking about before we knew it was even a potential to be on the table. Because, one, they're admitting exactly what I said to you to start this show. Daniel Theis should be one of the guys that needs to go.
Yeah.
And they can admit they made a mistake. They made a mistake. They swung and they missed. They spent too much money on too many years on a guy that was the wrong fit for this puzzle. But they wanted a big man. They had to have at least one on the roster because they lost Kelly Olynyk. So they admit they get out from under a mistake they made. And then they end up getting a guy that I believe is the perfect fit in terms of getting a true point guard to run the one and start so that KPJ, who's not a point guard in my opinion, can play the two, and Green can flourish by being a small forward and attack the basket at the three. That is why I think they should keep Dennis Schroder.
Hey guys, I want to tell you real quick about Fitz Roofing. I love the people at Fitz Roofing because they take care of Houstonians every step of the way. It starts with a free no-obligation inspection. All you do is call them, 832-521-3001. No matter what you need done, they come to you, tell you what they can do. They go back out the rest of their day. You want them to come back, you book them, and they do great customer service before, during, and after the sale. You can check out all the ways that they can help you at fitzroofing.com. But believe me, Fitz Roofing, making a difference one home at a time.
But I also believe that the Rockets aren't going to listen to me, and they have their own plan in mind. And if they are so hell-bent on the fact that KPJ is a point guard, that they are going to let Schroeder go and just buy him out. And if that's the case, the Lakers are waiting. They are going to snatch him up, and they are instantly a better team, whether he just comes off the bench and does what he had done previously for them, or if when Vogel decides to sit Westbrook late in games, and they need someone that's able to hit the big shot, hit the three, and also step up for them, then he's perfect.
I'm sure Schroeder will want to get bought out so he can be on a playoff team as opposed to being on the Houston Rockets. I think Schroeder would actually help the Rockets win some games, which might be a reason that you would buy him out from a Houston Rocket perspective. That way you can really secure one of the bottom three spots in the NBA. So how the Rockets handle Dennis Schroeder after this trade is going to be interesting. I like the move, though, because you get rid of the contract going forward. You get rid of Theis's money, and even if you end up buying out all three of these guys, the value in this trade is getting rid of the future money that Theis had. Now, the storyline, and maybe we're burying the lead here, Christian Wood and Eric Gordon are still on this team. You look at this trade deadline, they got rid of Theis, but they still have Wood and Gordon. A failure for Rafael Stone and the Houston Rockets?
I think from that perspective, look, I'm going to give Rafael Stone credit because a lot of general managers won't admit they made a mistake, and they will force feed the player over multiple years to try and prove that they were right and you were wrong. At least he was able to admit he was wrong and moved on from Daniel Theis. But it's a massive failure to not trade one, if not both, of Christian Wood and Eric Gordon. And we just back that up by what Mikhail has said before and what he just said with us again, which is we're on the same page, that the only time that Christian Wood could maximize his value for the Houston Rockets in a trade was up until this deadline right now. And the only way that you have a chance to salvage that anytime going forward into the last year of his deal would be in the offseason, as long as Christian Wood would be open to an extension, and whoever's making that deal for that extension is going to have to face the hard reality of he's going to want a max deal. And if you don't think he's worth it, then the Rockets aren't going to get the return on it, and therefore they're going to lose whatever trade they make for Christian Wood. They had to trade him before the deadline. Gordon is a different story. He's a little older. You still have the ability to get something of some kind of substance back for him because it's a different scenario. And Gordon's not trying to get a max deal. I believe he's already overpaid. But from a Wood perspective, you have just completely swung and missed, and you're never going to reap any kind of return on investment like you could have right now. So I think it's a massive failure if you did not move one, if not both of those guys before the deadline.
What if all you got offered was a second-round draft pick?
For Wood, it's bad. For Gordon, it's good. I think that unless you believe somewhere, and look, and we don't know if this is true or not. We heard, and there were rumors out there on multiple sites, that there was a trade that was already discussed between the Rockets and the Suns that the Rockets balked at and said, it's a nice offer, but we'll get back to you, that involved getting a first-round pick in the upcoming draft from the Suns, though it would be a late first-round pick. So what? You got a first-round pick for Eric Gordon. You got a guy in Dario Saric is coming off the books, so you don't have to worry about the Gordon-type contract for years to come. You got a young player or two you could possibly develop. You get a Cameron Payne that could run the point for you in the short term, again, if you want to experiment with moving KPJ around. And the trade made too much sense. But the Rockets, from what you hear reported, said, we like it. We'll get back to you. We're going to see what else is out there. And in the meantime, the other teams like Utah that might have been interested in Eric Gordon, those deals dried up because they went in a different direction. And now Phoenix is not offering it. And you go, well, now we're stuck with him.
Yeah, I mean, if that's true, and it's hard for us to know both sides of the story, then, yeah, that's a failure from Rafael Stone's point of view. But if you're getting lowballed for Christian Wood and lowballed for Eric Gordon, I'm okay hanging on to them because I don't want to diminish the value. Now, do they lose value because you're keeping them again in this offseason? You're going to try to trade them in the offseason, you would think. They're both under contract through next year, then their contract expires. So you have the offseason, you have up until next year's trade deadline to try to get better value than perhaps a lowball offer here. So, without knowing the full story, it's hard for me to really crush Rafael Stone, but you would have loved to get a first rounder for either Christian Wood or Eric Gordon, yet they're both here still with the Houston Rockets.